We're ending all American support for offensive operations in the war in Yemen, including relevant arms sales.
Let's discuss with Tom O'Connor. He's a senior foreign policy writer at the American weekly magazine Newsweek. He joins me now from New York. Tom, it's good seeing you. Thanks for joining us here.
Thanks so much for having me.
Firstly, let's look at the crisis in Yemen. President Biden says the U.S. will, quote, step up its diplomacy to end the war in that country, saying the conflict created a, quote, humanitarian and strategic catastrophe. How do you think he plans on doing it?
Well, I mean, it's the first thing that he's announced just in his first weeks of his administration is ending support for the Saudi-led war in Yemen. It is probably one of the most popular decisions he can make as far as foreign policy early on. It's something that Congress had voted on quite some time ago, but vetoed by the previous administration. So really, you know, as far as lawmakers go, the referendum has said that this is not a popular war, not one that the U.S. wants to support. At the same time, this isn't a declaration of peace either. The U.S. isn't necessarily the most involved actor in the conflict. There are other actors involved, and simply ending munition support for Saudi Arabia won't end the conflict in and of itself. So obviously, this is the first step towards what could be a more comprehensive peace process. It's a good step if that's the direction that he promised to go in when campaigning. So to some people, it was seen certainly as one of the earliest things he could do. I think also one of the most popular right after the signing of the New START, another act that had very broad consensus.
The Biden administration has also halted sales of munitions to Saudi Arabia in order to assess potential human rights abuses. It seems this administration is taking a no-nonsense approach to the Saudis.
Well, sure. I think that, you know, after the past administration had really warm ties with Saudi Arabia, I don't think that the Biden administration will look to Saudi Arabia as an adversary or even as in too much of a negative light. I think it's more of just a reassessing of how much of a blank check they have to do what they like, especially if it interferes in what the U.S. now considers its interests. And if the U.S. considers stability in Yemen, you know, the war that's been going on now for almost 6 years there, you know, the Saudi Arabia, their role in those bombings and stuff has been an instigating factor, as has, of course, which Biden also mentioned, the Ansar Allah, also known as the Houthis, on the ground, sort of the other side of the conflict, which they connect to Iran.
On the other hand, Tom, President Biden announced the U.S. will help Saudi Arabia, quote, defend its sovereignty from attacks and other threats from Iranian-supplied forces. Your thoughts?
Precisely, and that's kind of what I was alluding to in my previous answer, is that, you know, there's going to still be, at least I imagine, a steady stream of U.S. support to Saudi Arabia, perhaps defensively, not offensively, and perhaps that's the big defining factor, at least at this stage of the administration. But I find that in order to get to that stage where there is an actual peace process on the ground, there will have to be much broader and more intensive diplomatic efforts, and that'll take engaging all sides of the conflict. We know that one of the early priorities that Secretary Blinken mentioned in reassessing previous administration's foreign policy was removing the terrorist organization label from Ansar Allah, and if that's the case, that could also signal efforts to a more diplomatic solution, as well as better humanitarian aid flowing into the country.
All right, Tom O'Connor in New York, we appreciate you weighing in on this. Thank you.